Everybody, welcome back to my channel for another painting tutorial. I'm really excited to show you guys how to paint this landscape today. Before we get into this tutorial, I want to mention, because I don't think I've ever really talked about this before in my videos, but I don't know if you guys can see this, I have a brand and a merch store, and I've created lots and lots of different hoodies, t-shirts, bags, mugs. Here's just one of the mugs that matches. This is my personal favorite. You guys know I love pink. Anyways, it's one of my paintings, and I do have a tutorial, a full-length tutorial of this. And the best part is my brand, my logo. My husband made this logo for me, and I just love it. And wait for it, the back has the logo on it as well. Now there are different types of styles available. There's just a nice sleek black one. And on one side it has my logo, and then the other side has dots and dabs, and there's just so much to see. I'll include some pictures of what I've got on my shop, or in my shop. So it's different from my website. This is my spring merch store here only on YouTube, and I also have a website. My personal website is for selling my original paintings, so if there's anything you see that you're interested in, I get so many comments of people asking where they can purchase my paintings. They're all on my website, but prints and merch are here on YouTube in my store, so you'll see it on the top, and you can click on that. I'll also have a direct link for you as well, so please go check it out. And that being said, let's go ahead and get started with this video. I'm going to be going over all the supplies, colors, paintbrushes, and canvas with you right now, so let's jump in and get started. Okay, so let's go over all of the supplies that I'm using for this painting today. Feel free to use alternatives or whatever you have. You don't have to have all the types of paints, all the colors, and all the brushes that I'm using, but I'm going to go through them right now. All the purple handled brushes are my own, so you can purchase them with the link provided below the video in the description box. We've got a 3 round on the left, and on the right a number 2 rigger or long liner brush, a 14 Filbert brush, 1-inch mop brush. I'll be using a few different mop brushes, a 20 flat brush, and then I've got a couple large brushes here, 70 flat for the water, and a number 50 Filbert brush for parts of the sky and background. That takes us to our colors: titanium white, neon red, yellow, lemon yellow, light olive green, sap green, light blue violet, phthalo blue, dioxin purple, and neon violet, yellow ochre, burnt sienna, and titanium white. I'll list the brands that I'm using of paint below this video in the description as well. So the very first thing that I want to do is add a little bit of water to the canvas before coming in with the paint. So I'll just take my large flat brush here and just add some water here to the canvas. This is really going to help blend the acrylics out across the canvas easier. You'll use less paint this way and just have an easier time trying to paint on a larger area. Okay, so the first color that I want to take is light yellow here, my lemon yellow. And I'm just going to start adding it right in the center here. Just going to blend it around a little bit. And then I'm going to add a little bit down here, side to side, back and forth, where we're going to have it in the water, reflecting. All the colors in the water are going to reflect what's above and around. So we're going to have a beautiful sun setting, and we want to incorporate that in the water. This will really tie everything together. So I'm just going to keep adding a little bit of yellow here, because I'm going to be using the yellow to make some shades of peach when we add our red and our white. Okay, so without washing my brush, I'm going to take a little bit, and I just want to show you guys how much I'm adding to the brush. A little bit of white and red. I'm going to start adding the red and the white partially over the yellow. And just kind of sort of around. At this point, I just want to be kind of playful and loose with the paint. I'm going to add a little bit of water to my brush. And look at all that paint that is released just by adding a little bit of water. So whenever you make these little kind of wiggles with your brush, it can really help to shape your skies and make some dreamy looking clouds. I'm going to take a little bit more here again with some white, a little bit of water. Even though I added water to the canvas, it's starting to dry. So a little bit of those colors, and then we're just going to simply go up and down. I'm going to leave it nice and bright in the center. Then we're going to change direction, and we're just going to lightly go side to side. So you create sort of a grid, lines that go up and down and across. I'm going to start using a little bit more of the red and pick up a little bit more of the yellow, less white this time. And I'm just going to come in here and create some beautiful fire in the sky for this sunset. Now, I don't know how much of this is going to get covered up by trees. I don't think about that during the process. I just enjoy what I'm painting, how I'm painting it, and I just let everything kind of just fall into place. Remember, adding a little bit of water here and there can help release that paint. I'm going to add a little bit more red and yellow down here, wherever we have that intensity. So we can add a little bit of red across as long as we're still leaving that bright yellow there. Remember, if you're struggling with your paint not coming out of your brush, just have a little cup of water. Just get the bristles just a little bit wet, especially with a big brush like this. A little goes a long way. Okay, I'm going to rinse this brush out now. Okay, I'll set that aside for a minute, and I'm going to start using the large Filbert brush now. I'm also going to get this a little bit wet. Just moisten up those bristles a little bit. Really helps. You need that little bit of water to help release the paint. So what I want to do now is create sort of a turquoise shade. I'm going to use a little bit of white, light blue violet, phthalo blue, and our cool lemon yellow. And there's a little recipe for turquoise. Lighten or darken it by adding more or less white. Okay, so what I want to do now is tie this in on the side here, the left. So I'm going to pull and sweep. I'm going to add it down below here as well. Softly sweeping it over those other colors. I'm going to get a little bit of water. And do the same thing here. Take a little bit more. White, yellow, blue, both blues. Again, tiny bit of water. Look at the difference it makes. And from the other side, okay, so we've got a good start here. The next thing that I want to do before I wash this brush out is take some purple and a little bit of sap green. Now you can use just black if you want, however, I want to make this a little bit livelier. Black can be very dull and flat. So again, I'm using sap green and Dioxin violet. And I'm going to start tapping in, holding my brush like this, a little bit on an angle. And I'm just going to start tapping in. I'll use the mop brush soon. I'll be switching over to that, but I want to just add a few of these lower lying bushes that are coming down here. I'll bring a little bit out here as well, and let's add a little bit down here. Again, purple and green, the sap green. And then I'm just gonna sweep, sweep, turning my brush so I can use the full width and sweep across. I'm going to pick up a little bit of sap green and a little bit of light olive green without rinsing my brush off. Now I've got a lot of paint in here and I want all of those colors to come out. I'm going to line it up on the edge here on the left side very lightly with the tip of my brush, pull and sweep, then come down. Let's take a little bit more of that olive green. Pull it in both directions. And a little this way as well. Take a little bit more. And then I'm going to take the rest of what's in my brush, use the bottom end of my brush, the bristles, and start adding some purple and both greens. I'm going to add a tiny bit of water just to the ends, and I'm going to pull and gently flick for some tall pieces of grass in here, and we'll add maybe some flowers after. You guys know I like to paint intuitively, so I might have sort of an idea in mind, but I always like to just paint what happens to come to mind right on the spot. So it's hard for me to just stick to one idea or plan with painting. You just never know where your next brush stroke will take you, especially when you paint for a long time. You tend to get more creative. The more you paint, the more creative you become. It stirs something up in your mind and your brain, and it kind of like releases some kind of creativeness that you have, and you'll just notice this over time the more you paint, especially if you don't have a photo to look at. That's really, really good for you to practice that. And it might not be easy at first to get to that point where you can start using your imagination and having ideas come to you, but trust me, it will. Okay, so I think I'm really liking where this is going. I'm going to just add a little bit of this lemon yellow with sap green, and I'm going to add a little patch in here. Take just a little bit of water, loosen that. Not only is the green complementary to the red, because it's a yellowy green I'm using, it's also really complementary with the purple. So complementary colors are so important with art and painting. And it's really fun to see the colors play off of one another and bring the painting to life. I'm going to wash this brush off now, and I'm going to switch over to a mop brush. My favorite part of the painting process. I love a good mop brush. So because this is a large painting I'm working on, and I've got lots of trees and bushes that I'm going to be painting, I'm going to be using more than just one brush. And this is an excellent brush. This comes in it's included in my 5-piece set of vegan cruelty-free brushes. So remember, there's a link below. There's only about 100 sets left. They come in a gorgeous box with a velvet casing inside and a free print of one of my paintings, which I also have a tutorial of as well. So what I want to do with this mop brush is start stippling in some light purpley blue bushes in the background, and then we're going to build up to some darker greens, and then adding a little bit of light green. So let's just start focusing on the background ones I'm going to be using. The first important thing to know about this part of the painting is to not put this brush in the water until you're done using it, of course, because you want to wash it out after. But load it dry, no water, just to paint only. Okay, the reason is because it'll lose its shape and you don't want to overload the brush. So we're going to start right here. Look at those pretty colors together. I've been having a lot of fun getting back into my really colorful landscapes and paintings lately, and it's really exciting when you guys are enjoying them too. I think that's what, if you've been with me since the beginning of my YouTube channel, which was I think maybe 5 or 6 years ago now. Could even be 7, I'm not even sure, I've lost track of time. It feels like just yesterday that I started my channel. But if you guys have been with me since then, you probably joined my channel because you also have a love of color, a love for color, and, you know, sort of dramatic scenes that kind of play up on color and kind of exaggerate a little bit. But isn't that what art should be? If we wanted the real thing, we would just have a photograph. That's what I always think. Though I do have huge respect for artists and art that looks like a photograph. I think it's unreal what the human eye and artist can do that have you thinking you're seeing a photograph when it's just somebody just replicated it with their hand and a paintbrush. It's just incredible. But I really, really love art as an escape and an expression. It really helps you lose yourself, and kind of you develop your own style too over time. Don't ever try to be like another artist or somebody else. You know, if you're following me or another artist and you're frustrated because your trees aren't looking like ours, it's because it's our sort of signature, like exactly like a signature. We all have a different signature that's hard to copy, handwriting or printing or whatever. Same with art. So as you can see, I've been building this up, tapping partially over the dark green and purple. And the next thing I'm going to do is take a little bit of white. I'm not washing this brush off yet. I'm not done with it yet. I will be soon. I'm going to take a little bit of white with that blue violet, and I'm just going to start adding some little lighter areas here to make these look more 3D, because right now it just kind of looks all flat and purple, and the color's really pretty against that peachy background. But I want to have some areas here that stick out a little. So that's all you have to do is add lighter or darker, lighter and darker areas, and you'll have a 3D image, whether it be still life or, you know, a landscape. Now, what I like to do is with the leftover paint on my brush, there's hardly anything in there. I'm going to just add the littlest bit of water, and I probably added too much water there. This will kind of flatten the brush, but it'll also allow me to lightly pull and drop some of that beautiful purple in the water here. Now add as much or as little as you want, but try to include, and I'm gonna just add a little bit more here, try to include some. It'll be really, really pretty. Okay, so I'm gonna continue using this brush. Now that it's lost its big round fluffy shape. It's narrow, but I can still stipple and get in this narrow area here where I want to add some light olive green. So right at the base of these trees, I'm going to add a few little bushes like this. So just tapping. The trick is to not overload your brush. No big globs of paint on there. You won't be able to do anything with big globs of paint. And I've been mentioning this in all my tutorials lately because I use a mop brush quite a bit, and you guys are having a hard time, well, some of you are having a hard time executing the soft, poofy brush stroke or stipple with these brushes. So I made a tutorial. It's quick, it's straight to the point, 1, 2, 3 steps on how to load and use the mop brush, and it's helped hundreds, if not thousands of you guys. So please have a look at that, and it's also in a playlist where I go through all of the brushes and show you the same thing, so you're learning how to load them and use them properly. Oftentimes when we just start our painting journey, we buy all these brushes and we don't know what to do with them. So it can really step up your game and help you become a happier artist when you know what to do with these brushes and paints and everything else. So I'm happy to be bringing this content to you guys, and thanks for being here for it. Another cool brush that I like to use for painting, especially branches, long pieces of grass, and tree trunks, is my rigger brush. This is a number 2 rigger brush. Now see how it kind of looks a little separate and puffy, but when I get it in the water, it goes into a nice thin line. So the trick with these is you really want to have water on your brush. I'm going to take a little combination here of the green and the purple, and I'll see if I have enough water. I'm going to turn my handle upright and just start wiggling with the end of my brush, and I can see I need a little bit more water and a little bit more paint. Once you get a feel for the brush, you'll enjoy the process of using these. So I'm just adding little branches, little tree trunks, this way and that way. They don't all have to be on an angle. I like to kind of twist and wiggle while I'm adding my branches and moving around. If there's any branches or tree trunks that you don't like, you know what I always say? Just cover them up. Or you can catch it, if you catch it quick enough, as soon as you put it down and you're like, whoops, I had an oopsie, or you left with a little blob, or one part is too thick or too thin. I mean, you can always take it off right away. Acrylic is pretty forgiving. You can either paint over it if it's dry, or you can wipe it off if it's still wet. Don't scrub too hard, or you run the risk of disrupting the layer of paint that's underneath. That's the only thing you should know. Now, I'm gonna add a few more stipples and treetops here with another clean and dry mop brush. Okay, so I've got another dry and clean. It's got a nice shape to it, and this is what I want. And I'm gonna come in with a little bit of my green, the sap green. I mean, you can even have a little bit of purple in there, that's fine too. But we've got that purple underneath, and I'm just gonna start building another layer and sort of row of trees in here. I love that layered, dense look, and this is how you do it. You know, if you look at nature in real life, or if you're looking at a photograph and you're wondering how do you do that? How the heck do you make all those different layers? And it can kind of stress you out. I hope this is giving you guys some idea of how you do that. And please let me know in the comments if you have anything you're not really understanding. I mean, it's easier when I show you rather than if I'm like typing out an answer or an explanation. The best way to learn is by watching. Now I'm just going to take what's left of my brush. There's still quite a bit in there, and I'm just going to add this little, I'm even going to pinch my brush to make it narrower here and add a little bit more up here, down here, partially over that light green. We still have that really pretty backdrop of the purple, and that takes us back even further to the soft peachy sky. So now I'm going to take, without washing my brush off, it's still okay to use here, a little bit of sap and light olive green, and let's go over and include some of this. A little bit of white in there too. That might have been a little bit more than what I initially wanted, but that'll work. It's all going to dry a little bit darker. So I'm just choosing a few areas, not the whole thing, not every single part of the tree and bush. We just want to enhance what's already there. I think somewhere in here I want to add a weeping willow tree. I think that would be quite pretty. So I'm going to do that, but with the rest of this paint, I don't want to waste this. So I know in here I could have a little bit of grass, maybe some flowers. So I'll show you a cool technique if you get and I showed it to you down here with the Filbert brush, I believe, the big one. If you get it a little bit wet, it should start kind of separating into little kind of chunks, and you can turn the brush over like this and then just gently pull and sweep, and this will make for a nice beginning stage to a little landing of a grassy landing here. I can still use this and add a little bit of purple and sap green. Try that again, right from the bottom, and we'll start to make this, we'll build up on the layering. Take a little bit more green and purple on the end of my brush now. And I'm just going to tap out the bottom and then really lightly, I mean hardly touch that canvas at all. Painting like this just kind of forces you to be calm. If you've had a hectic day, if you're having a hard time just sort of winding down, just start painting, and what you do is you like start to hyper focus without even trying. Okay, so now we start to have this 3D looking area of grass. We've got our shadow down here, low, going into the water. And then we start to have this layered grass look that we're going to build up and add more to with the liner and the rigger brush coming up shortly. But I want to do the same thing down here, so I'm going to just get a little bit of water. I'm going to release that paint. My easel is not being my friend today. I'm having a hard time lately. I really need to get a new easel. I think I've said that before, and then what happens when I get to the art store, I see all the paint and the colors and it just goes out the door. I forget, and I get home and I'm like, oh no. It's all about the paint and the colors and seeing what's new. I mean, I can work with this easel. It just would be a lot easier if I had one that wasn't so finicky. It's just, I've used it so much and it's time to, and my husband's replaced some of the bolts on it, and I don't know, the screws, whatever holds it together. It's just time for a new one. I don't think I'll get rid of it. I'm kind of sentimental that way because I've created a lot of artwork with this easel. I think I'll just use it for display in the corner of my studio somewhere. Okay, so now that we've got a little bit more depth down here using this brush, I'm going to rinse it out and we're going to start working on the next step. So my mop brushes are all wet and I can't use them anymore because they've lost their shape. So I'm going to be using another one here that's not from my series of brushes, but these are nice brushes. I don't know if they are vegan or cruelty free, but I do get them online and I'll try to, if I can find them. I've had a hard time finding links for people with these lately, but if I remember and if I can find the link, I'll provide it down below for you guys. But what I want to do now, just before I go over and add like a soft, foggy, misty look to set this even back further in the distance, I'm going to just add a little bit more to the trees here. And I want to take a little bit of blue and a little bit of white again. So just to show you how little paint, oh, I think I have a loose hair there. Well, maybe not. How little of paint that I have on my brush, and it's important to see this so you know why, if you're having trouble executing this type of brush stroke, and you just want to kind of on an angle, so not like this, not straight up and down, a little bit on an angle, and you'll get a nice soft look. You see, it looks so light on, like hardly any color on the brush, but when we add it over part of that sky, you can see those colors just play on one another and really pop. I'm going to add a little bit in here, and the reason why is because I know that the colors will kind of just sing together here and look so pretty. A little bit of violet in there with that greeny blue. And even a little in here too. Okay, then with the rest of this paint, there's hardly anything on my brush. I have to really hold on to my easel here. What I'm doing is releasing the little bit of paint that's left. Now I've run out, so I'm going to take a little bit more. A little bit more white this time. And just work the rest of that out before I wash this brush. Okay, so I'm gonna rinse the brush out. I want to mention to you guys when I'm rinsing my brushes out so that you don't forget yourselves. It's an easy thing to do when we're caught up in the moment of painting. It may feel like only 2 minutes when 30 minutes has gone by, and before you know it, you've ruined a brush. Okay, what I'm really wanting to do is add a big weeping willow, or biggish weeping willow. I'm gonna add it from right about here. And let's go ahead and do that. So I'm gonna take my round brush now. I don't think I used this yet in this tutorial. Number 3 round brush. Yeah, let's take, I've got this burnt sienna here. I'm gonna get my brush a little bit wet. I've got some burnt sienna here. I'm gonna take a little bit of purple with that and make it nice and dark. This makes a gorgeous, gorgeous, deep, dark, rich brown. Even red, another nice color recipe is crimson red or cadmium red too, with purple, dioxazine purple. Okay, so I've got a nice amount. I only dampened the bristles. You don't want to, if you have too much water in your brush, it's going to be see-through, and you don't want to have a see-through looking tree. I'm going to start the tree right here, so just a little lower, about a couple inches lower from the horizon. Gently push and pull that out. I always like to spread that out kind of thin along the bottom, kind of curve it over and wiggle out some tree roots, and then twist the branches around. I'm gonna bring this up taller, so I'm gonna make sure that that's a thicker, some of these are thicker because this is going to be a taller, bigger tree. And I'm just going to scoop up the rest of this paint here. I've got a decent amount on the end of my brush to work with. And then let's bring it over here. Change the direction with this one. Bring it over. I'm just going to bring this down a little bit lower. And then I'm gonna start painting some thinner branches off of these big ones. You can use a great brush would be actually the little rigger kind of liner brush. But you can do it with this brush too. It depends on how comfortable you are with the brush. Find what works for you. This round brush that I'm using has more of a pointy end to it, so it really does depend on which type of round brush you have. I'm going to take a little bit of burnt sienna and a little bit of yellow ochre. I'm not going to over mix them to make one solid color. I want it to be a little bit marbled, and I'm going to just start just where it starts to like curve and come up here and add a little hint of light in there, and maybe a little bit of a glow on this side too. Why not? We can make it however we want. It's our little world that we're creating. Taking light olive green and some lemon yellow. I'm gonna add a little light patch of grass over here. Maybe another one right about here. And maybe a little bit back in here too. Take those colors again, a little bit thicker this time. And I'm gonna dab around here. Little sort of chunky lines. You want them to be flat on the bottom for the water's edge. Okay, I'm gonna rinse this brush out. And I'm going to use my 14 Filbert brush now, taking a little bit of water on it. And I'm going to add a little bit of phthalo blue, a little bit of light blue violet, hint of purple. Love this color. And I'm going to come underneath these areas here. I know I want to have a little bit more purple, because it'll be complementary. See the difference it makes? If it's just too much of the phthalo blue, you won't get as much of complementary color combination happening. So this is really pretty. I think I'm gonna just pull in a little bit of that, add a little bit right there. And then I want my weeping willow tree to really, the green on it to show up. So I'm going to use just whatever's left here in my brush, that light purple. And I'm just going to make this somewhat darker before I come in with my weeping willow leaves. Doesn't hurt to have a little bit of this pretty purple to play off of the green when I add it. Okay, so we are ready. So I'm going to be using this big Filbert brush for some of the main branches, the first layer of the tree, but you can use a smaller one, of course, and some alternatives to a Filbert brush if you don't have any Filbert brushes at all. You can also apply the same brush stroke using a flat brush. It's just going to be about curving and pulling and dropping. Same way we paint waterfalls, actually. And if you don't have one of those and all you have is a fan brush, do the same thing with a fan brush. This is just my favorite one to use. So I'm going to start with sap green and light olive green. We've got this purple base and also these other colors in the background. And I'm just going to start right off the top. I'm going to go on a bit on an angle and pull, pull, pull. I'm now going to take some white, light olive green, and yellow. And I'm kind of tapping, like stippling, to encourage those bristles to separate into little chunks like this so I can get more of a dimension. And I'm going to kind of tap like this and then lightly go over. Tap, 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 and then go over. I'm gonna load this up again. So add as much or as little as you want. Then you can build up. Now I'm wiggling my brush to make those bristles go back together. And I'm going to add another little layer on an angle like this. It's just like painting waterfalls, isn't it? Okay, I'm going to just bring a little bit of the reflection down below. Little hint sideways and down. Rinsing my brush out. While this is drying, I'm going to move over to this section here and start adding some long blades of grass and some flowers. For the grass, I'm going to be using my Rigger long liner brush. I'm going to get it wet, and I'm going to start with sap green and light olive green. And I'm just going to start flicking. I don't want to go right, I don't want to start them down here. I like that dark shadow base that we have. I'm going to use a little bit of white in here to make these show up a little bit more. So see how they're starting to stand out? And we can see different layers in there. You can even add just a little hint of reflections, very subtle, down below. Okay, I'm gonna get my brush wet again, and I'm gonna use a little bit of yellow and white. I'm gonna get the tops of these. Anything that ends up looking a little too chunky looking, I'll add a little flower too. I'm going to do the same thing down below here. Yellow, greens, white. And then we're going to start painting our dock in a little bit. I don't want to do too much more down here in case I might cover it up with a dock, but let's move on to the dock. I'm going to be using the number 20 flat brush, and first I want to add the shadow in the water. So I'm going to be adding a bit of water to my brush, and I'll be thinning out some purple and burnt sienna. Okay, so it's going to be on an angle, so we're going to have a line coming right here across, and then we're going to cut it on an angle like this and then go over. I'm going to need a little bit more water. I'm gonna actually take a little bit of blue in with that. Make a really nice dark shadow color. This is the shadow in the water from the dock above, okay? If you guys are just wondering what this is. And then just soften underneath. Okay, so the next step is adding some yellow ochre. And I'm going to start a little post right here. Just a little post, maybe an inch or so. And then the next one will be right here. Then I'm going to join these. Like that. And then bring the rest over the side of the dock. Just rinsing my brush out a little bit. Just taking a little bit off right there. Okay, now I'm going to take a little bit of burnt sienna and yellow ochre, and I'm going to go from this corner all the way across. Fill that in. We're going to have the dock top part here that I'm painting right now brighter than the side. That side will be in shadow, and the front will be brighter as well. I'm going to take some white now. I forgot I've got white down here just in case I needed some that was brighter and not mixed in with the green and the yellow there. So this right here, I'm going to bring over the front. Pull that across. And then we're going to leave a little space and just keep this bright, but you'll be able to see that clearer when we start coming in with more of our shadows. I'm going to start adding some lines, just simple lines. You can even just, without getting carried away with too much detail, just sort of pull on an angle. You can make them thinner if you want, it's up to you. And then just a little graze over the edge there. Let's take a little bit of purple. I still haven't rinsed my brush out. Pull across. Just a light little bit right there. I'm going to take some more purple. I'm going to add a little bit of green to it to make it nice, really nice and dark. There's a hint of the burnt sienna in there. And I'm going to come right down underneath here, make it a little darker, have a darker shadow. And we're going to get the edge of this post and the edge of this post. Clean brush, more white, a little bit of yellow ochre. Pull all the way across. Some diagonal lines. Back over to my little round brush. I'm going to take some purple. And cut right over, separate that post. And we're going to make it a little bit lower or longer. Then with a little bit of white and yellow ochre again, I'm going to get this side of the post. I'm going to need extra white for this side because it's already really bright, but I want to make sure it stands out. And I'm going to take some burnt sienna now. And I'm going to pull this through just to warm this area up. Okay, now I'm going to take a little bit of purple, burnt sienna, a little bit on the end of my brush, and we're just going to start adding little lines. Try to space them out as evenly as you can. If you want to sketch yours out first, that's fine. Then wherever we have those lines, we're just gonna sweep across diagonally. And I'm gonna adjust these in a minute. Let's go back over to our light yellow ochre and white. And we're gonna go on the top of these. Between and pull. And one more little line right here, and then pull across the top or the front. I'm going to take my flat brush now. Let's sweep a little bit of these off. Then I want to take green. I love using the flat brush because it can go back and sort of straighten things out a little bit more, but I'm never really worried about making everything super perfect. I'm just going to cut over the top like this with my green and purple. Doesn't it help just sort of bring it all together now? And then add a little bit more. I'm going to add these little wiggles, and they're going to be little lily pads. I think that would be really pretty back there on the other side of the dock. Maybe add a few in here. So let's take a little bit of light olive green and add a little bit inside those. So you want them to be sort of outlined dark. And then I'm going to take a little bit of white and add some brighter ones in here. I'm going to switch over to my little brown brush again. Take some purple and some green. And I'm going to give a little scoop down underneath. We'll just make these lily pads a little bit more 3D. And then we can come in and add some flowers. What I think I want to do as well is go back over to this area here with my purple and green, a little bit of water, and add a few little wiggles in here just so that it looks, you know, a little wiggly like water does. Take a little bit of burnt sienna, a little bit of that purple, and I'm going to come across this one side here with these little deck boards or floorboards. Go back for some yellow ochre because it's dipping down a little bit here. But it doesn't have to be perfect, you guys. And then I'm going to come underneath and just add a little bit of light. A little bit of light in between the deck and the water. Let's take the green colors that we have here. So we can cut in here. And then sweep across a little bit. Let's take the yellow and the white so that we're matching a little bit more. I'm going to rinse my brush out, and I'm going to apply a fresh layer of purple to bring these posts back out. So down and then over. And then we're going to have a little post on the other side, visible. Right about there. And then another one right here. We're going to add a little bit of burnt sienna, yellow ochre, just a tiny bit here. I'm going to take a little hint of light blue violet and just sweep over. I'm going to add a nice dark line right under there where the dock meets the post with my flat brush, a little bit of green and purple. Okay, so just a little darker right in here. My long liner brush, and I can start adding some more grass, green, purple, both those greens, and just add a little bit more of my lemon yellow. I'm going to bring some of these up, going in front of the dock, so it helps put it in perspective that these pieces of grass are more in the foreground, maybe where we're standing. And you could add a little bit of movement just by curling them over a little bit, giving them an extra little flick to the right or to the left. There's a little bit more sap and purple where I want some of these to stand out a little bit more. Remember, it's all about light and shadow, so lighter and darker shades that play off of one another. I wish I was sitting on that dock right now. How relaxing. Sit there with my easel, you know, and just paint the beauty that's all around and that sunset. a little scoop of each. Lemon yellow and sap green. So many different shades of green, warm and cool. Okay, I think that it's time to start adding some flowers. I'm going to use my little round brush. I'm going to take some white and some red. Mix the two, twist my brush to get that shape, and then add a little kind of a bowl shape like that. And then just add some little dabs. I like to paint impressionistic flowers. I'm gonna just add some down in this area here too. Maybe there's some lilies down here in between the grass or below the grass, and we're just seeing a little bit of it. Remember, when painting flowers and such, you don't need to paint every single part of the flower all the time. These little dots and dabs really kind of come together at the end. So I'm going to take a little bit more red now. And bring a little bit more of this color in here. And then I'm going to go into this gorgeous violet. And I'm going to start adding some flowers in here. Maybe more of a flower bush on the shore or the grass there. And maybe a little bit in here. You know, I'm going to use my mop brush. Use a little mop brush here because I'm going to create a softer texture. So just adding a little bit to the end of my brush and then a little tap. Add a few little low-lying ones. A little something back there. The rich violet with that green is just so pretty. A little sweep over here. These little touches, little hints of color are what make your paintings come to life. Take a little bit more. And I'm going to paint some flower stalks. So just tapping a little bit narrower on the top. Take a little bit of purple, a little bit of white, and the violet. Add a little bit of light blue violet in there as well. Get some different layers going on. I've got lots blooming in my garden right now and getting ready to bloom. I'm so excited because I planted, I don't know if you guys remember last year I was talking to you about how I've tried so many times to grow wisteria. And I'm really happy to tell you guys that I finally have 2 surviving, not surviving, but thriving wisteria bushes in my front yard. So little things like that just make me really, really happy. Flowers bring me a lot of happiness. And wisteria, you know, is so fragrant. I'm gonna add a little highlight here. Okay, so I'm gonna go over to my round brush again. I'm gonna add some white, a little bit more of this violet. I'm just gonna add little dabs. Alternate, a little bit of blue and white. More like delphiniums or foxgloves, I don't know, something sort of like that. And the little buds are smaller on the top, and then they get more pronounced or larger as they go down. I'm gonna rinse that brush off and head back over to here with some green, sap green, a little bit of purple. We're gonna go just underneath these flowers. Where they're a little taller, we'll add like maybe a little stem. And then a little bit of a green base to them. These ones are a little farther away, so you don't really have to add those. You don't have to add them there, I mean. And then, you know, like just a little line. Have this a little bit lighter green where it'll show up better, obviously right here. And just going to use a little bit of yellow and green here and white. Any or all of those greens. But it does work better with the liner brush. Okay, with my flat brush now, I'm going to go back over to my red and my white. And I'm going to add a little bit more color. I'm going to sweep take a little bit of yellow in there and make some really pretty shade of peach. Yellow, white, and red. Play off on the yellow. Just want to bring a little bit more heat. My paint's starting to dry, but there's still a lot back there, or underneath I should say. I'm going to add a little bit of water to my brush, and we're going to just a little bit more of that yellow, and then just thin that out even more. Take a little bit of white. Push those lines off, and then just go over that peach. And then finish off with dry brush of soft white. In the background. So see how it's transparent? It's just with a damp brush and a little bit of white, even a hint of yellow in there can be really pretty. I'm going to add a little bit of white and yellow now. Sweep over, add a little bit of light. Just make some of these pop out a little bit more in the background. A little bit of that bright, bright yellow. Really add a lot. By making it, you just feel that sunlight, don't you? Okay, I'm going to just take all the greens with a little bit of white again, tapping it to get kind of a stipple. And just barely, barely touching, light little taps for a little bit of texture. Now what I want to do is, this is drying a little bit darker than I'd like, so with a dry and clean mop brush, I'm going to take a little bit of white and violet, and I'm just going to add a few more little highlights like this. I'm going to add a little bit of light blue violet, a little bit of purple violet, and then the blue, purple, both blues and purple. And I'm going to add a little bit more in here because it's looking a little bit too predictable with the placement of the stock flowers. So I want to just change it up a little bit here and there and have some extra things going on. I'm going to add a few little flower petals. Oh, there, I was looking for my round brush. And I'm going to take some white with violet, white with any of these colors really, and I'm going to pull gently up, 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 and let off, and we're just going to add some pretty little daisy type flowers. I am really having so much fun with this painting. I'm happy that you guys are enjoying these tutorials. Don't forget to, and I'm not finished yet, I'm just gonna chat a little bit as I'm doing this, but don't forget to check below this video for links to where you can get the brushes I'm using that I designed myself. I'm always really excited to share new things with you guys, things that I enjoy using and that are helpful, especially with you new painters out there. So I'm changing up the size of these. Some of them I'm making a little bit bigger, some of them I'm making a little smaller, some of them I'm adding a little bit extra white too, so we have different shades going on. Then I need to add a little center to some of these flowers. Again, they're just, we're adding our little dots and dabs. It is that easy, you guys. And I hope you're taking it all in and learning a lot in these videos. It sure brings me a lot of joy being able to share them with you. Use the rest of this beautiful violet. Before I say goodbye. And I'm going to add a little bit of white and yellow to some of my little water lilies here. A few flowers a little bigger. I will be showing you how I sign my painting in just a moment, but I want to have some brighter pieces of grass, just a few here that are very delicate. So I'm going to use a very thin amount of paint on my long rigger brush here, and I'm just going to sweep over a few little pieces that could just come over in. Hang in the front here. A little bit of that leftover because I hate to waste paint. That rose. I've got a lot of paint left here. Actually, I'm going to be using this for another painting after I'm done. But my purple, green, and the neon violet. Just want to add a little bit more right in there. I emphasize I'm making this part nice and dark in between the water lilies and just on the water's edge there. And just clean that up. All these little finishing touches. I like to use these tiny little micro mini liner brushes. And I'm doing this because I've had a lot of requests on how I sign my paintings. And most of you are curious as to how big you should sign your painting, where you should sign it. And my answer is choose anywhere on the bottom left or anywhere on the bottom right. And I would make it smaller than you think you need to. So what I'm going to use is white down here. I think that it will kind of blend in to the flowers. You'll still be able to see it if you look close, but it's also not going to be distracting and take away from what I want the viewer to see, and that is this pretty scene. So you're going to need a little bit of water with these little liner brushes. I'm just going to use straight white. Just kind of roll it around, get it on the tip of my brush. You know, some people, including myself, have used little paint pens, and you can do that if you want. It's up to you. I like the challenge of using these little liner brushes, but on the back I do sign it again, and I add the title, the dimensions, and also include that it is an original painting. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video today and learning how to paint this landscape. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you all soon in my next video. Bye!